Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hello. How are you? Good morning, everybody. It is January 31st, 2017, Tuesday, as it happens. I don't know if that's going to make a great deal of difference. We should probably just rewrite the calendar from the ground up at this point. We're here. They're allowing us to broadcast. Let's see what that's worth. Hang on, and we'll take you on a quick tour of what happened since our last show. Everything seems to happen in between our shows. That's why we're driving the American agenda, obviously. It's more or less really because we're off at 11, and that's about the time that Donald Trump shuffles out of the private residence and gets down to business. I understand his schedule starts a little earlier these days than he's used to. 9 o'clock. He's very upset that he doesn't get the 9 to 10 hour to continue watching Fox and Friends, I guess, and he's taking it out on the rest of us. Bill in Portland, Maine, has his morning tweet for us this morning, and guess what? It's more or less what we put up today. I don't know how you could go any other direction. Daily Coast Radio is live now, one more time anyway. Kagro X, that's me. Frank Jones, in case anyone's listening. Go arrest that guy. I'm sorry, Frank. Is this thing the United States of America? Is what I'm talking about. Is it still on? I don't know. He says the answer will shock you. We'll find out. That's the way to get clicks. It seems to be working. Where do we begin? I suppose there's no other place other than bringing up where we are constitutionally. The big news, obviously. Yesterday, the then acting Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General for the United States prior to the switch over to the Trump quote-unquote administration. Sally Yates is her name. I guess we're going to get used to it. A longtime civil servant inside the Department of Justice. We'll catch up on her history. It won't surprise you to find out that she's served under administrations of both parties and done so with great success and to her credit, and she has advanced accordingly. That probably means somewhere along the line that she declined to prosecute somebody that we wish had been prosecuted, of course, but that's the way careerism goes. But at any rate, yesterday she announced that as acting Attorney General, which is what you've got if you can't confirm an attorney general because you have nominated someone who's a alt-right loon and nobody wants to get down to business and confirm the guy. Even the Republicans who will eventually vote for him don't want to do it. So we've been under an acting attorney general for all of 10 days that Donald Trump, believe it or not, has been president of the United States. I know, pains me still to say. I'm still writing President Obama on my checks. Maybe you are the same. Anyway, she stepped up and basically said, okay, look, somebody at the top of the Justice Department has to say something at some point about this thing, and I guess it falls to me as acting Attorney General. We're not going to be wasting any Justice Department time defending the executive order issued by Trump the other day purporting to ban travel by, everybody, basically, who is found to have been born in any one of the 7 countries where there are 1, majority Muslim population, and 2, no Trump Tower. Didn't read exactly that way, but it certainly came out that way in effect. And, very quickly 4 federal judges found it to be pretty much a crock and have stayed its enforcement. So they turned to the Justice Department and asked, what are you going to do about it? And the answer is, you're on your own. If you want to defend this thing, it won't be with Justice Department lawyers. So that lasted all of about 10 minutes. Everybody knew pretty much as soon as Sally Yates said that was too fair and too nonpartisan. she had to be fired. And in fact, I think before I got home from basketball practice with the youngest, she had in fact been fired. Trump has instead named a new successor to the acting attorney general office. His name is Lackey Mc. I don't know. I don't know. I never heard of him. He is, I guess, another of the mid to high level Department of Justice employees, and probably likewise has a very similar record of service to presidents of both parties, etc. But he went looking for somebody who would agree to enforce and defend the executive order, not unlike the way President Nixon went through his Saturday night massacre and just basically fired everyone down the line until he found the next person who was willing to say, I'll keep the job by enforcing this thing. We'll turn to, let's see, gosh, there's so much reporting about it, and I put so many of these other pieces in. Let's start with what ran last night on the front page of Daily Kos, in case you went to bed or anything like that, anything stupid like that, and stop paying attention to what the Trump regime, we might as well begin calling it, the Trump junta, has been writing. Barbara Morrill put this one up for us, and it goes a little something like this. Trump fires acting Attorney General Yates for upholding the Constitution and installs a lackey in his place. And, well, let's read it, at least so we can find out what the lackey's name is. All right. The popular vote loser just fired the acting Attorney General, she writes, for daring to uphold the Constitution by refusing to defend Trump's bigoted Muslim ban. And the statement from the bunker is as childish as Trump's hands. Thank you, Barb. The acting Attorney General, Sally Yates, this is, by the way, a quote from the statement from the White House about this. This really is rather astounding. If you haven't heard it, if you fell down and hit your head on a rock last night, everyone should probably try that tonight and see what you can forget. If you missed it, the acting Attorney General, Sally Yates, has betrayed the Department of Justice by refusing to enforce a legal order, right, whatever, designed to protect the citizens of the United States. This order was approved as to form and legality by the Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel. No, it wasn't. Ms. Yates is an Obama administration appointee who is weak on borders and very weak on illegal immigration. That is the most childish language. You never find anything like that in a presidential statement. It's actually quite stupid and, rather amazing that they did that. Michael Musson observing, by the way, as I understand it, and you understand it correctly, the replacement for Yates is actually the next in line of succession at DOJ. Funny that they followed that. I think, I haven't looked it up. I know that ordinarily in the absence of the Attorney General, obviously the Deputy Attorney General would be the acting Attorney General. I think at that point the org chart of the DOJ, and by the way, if anyone knows different, please do speak up, but my experience has been, actually my experience in studying that kind of succession has not been in the Justice Department, but I imagine that it's pretty similar. I actually went through this with the over in HUD. It works, I think, more or less the same way. I think there's a generally applicable procedure across the board for when important offices are vacant, and very often the organization charts on these departments are okay. Great, thank you. Michael has given us a link here. Very often the organization is, secretary, and then there's a principal deputy. Sometimes there are parallel deputies, but usually there's one principal deputy, below which there are departmental heads, all of more or less equal rank. Sometimes in some departments, one or another of them is designated occasionally by statute as the designated successor to the deputy, usually for the purposes of replacing a deputy who has left or otherwise is unable to perform their duties. And so sometimes they'll designate one or sometimes even two departmental heads as successors to the deputy. But after that, and in some cases it's not the case at all, the president or secretary, if there is a secretary in place, has the option of picking from among the department heads a new deputy. That was the way it worked over in HUD, and there was some question about replacing some middle-ranking HUD officials a couple of years ago. I don't know if that's necessarily the case in the Department of Justice, but it may be that the president had the option of, very often there's 6 or 7 of these assistant deputies or something. The style is different from department to department, but they often have their choice of half a dozen or so equally ranking department officers. Oh, by the way, somebody actually, this is Department of State, sent along just by coincidence, not directly to me, but somebody was just tweeting around the Department of State organization chart, which brings up a good point, that all of these jobs are empty in many cases. And I guess also it's worth pointing out that probably Sally Yates wasn't necessarily long for the world in Department of Justice. I don't know if she is one of the many officials who would have submitted a pro forma resignation letter to the president effective January 20th, and he may have just invoked that resignation. Let me take a look at what Michael has sent us. It is a 2010 executive order. Here we are. That would be from President Barack Obama. Executive Order 13557, Order of Succession within the Department of Justice. So, okay, an executive order sets the succession here. Let's take a look. Do I need to tell you that it was done by the authority vested in him as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, in case you were wondering, including the Federal Vacancies Reform Act of 1998, which, if you want to check on that one, 5 U.S. Code 3345. So you can take a look at that. He modifies that with executive order saying, 1, the order of succession, subject to the provisions of Section 2 of this order, the following officers in the order listed shall act as and perform the functions and duties of the Office of the Attorney General during any period in which the Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, and the Associate, the Associate Attorney General and any officers designated by the Attorney General pursuant to 28 U.S. Code 508 to act as Attorney General have died, resigned, or otherwise become unable to perform the functions and duties of the Office of Attorney General until such time as at least one of the officers mentioned above is able to perform the functions and duties of that office. So let me take a look here. Digest this. If there's no Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General is fired, then it would go to ordinarily to the Associate Attorney General, I guess. Below that, this is where this order comes into play. All right. Well, that's interesting, because I know that the replacement is, in fact, the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Yield Rocket Docket, as they like to call it, not with the yield, but it's the closest in suburban Virginian federal district. Handles a lot of, fairly serious, high-level business of all sorts. It's not quite your D.C. circuit, but I guess as among the district courts, it sees an awful lot of action. I would say it's one of the more active. Certainly the New York districts do too, but they see more of the business activity. This sees more of the federal law activity, as far as I always understood it. Anyway, so I guess that succession, the move from U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, jumping ahead. Interestingly, by the way, the next in line would be the United States Attorney for the District of Minnesota, and third, the United States District Attorney for the District of Arizona. I guess they like to spread it around a little bit, but I don't know. I think reasonable choice to start with Eastern District of Virginia. They're close by, close in, likely to be connected with Main Justice, as they like to call it. And so Michael's observation was it was interesting that he bothered to follow an Obama executive order designating the next in line. However, I'm not certain that, how did we end up, was there not an associate attorney general? Can we look that up? I mean, it may be that person resigned or was cleaned out, one way or the other. Let's see. What did we say? The title was Associate Attorney General. I'm literally going to have to Google it, or maybe even look at Wikipedia to find out who is or was the last sitting United States Associate Attorney General. I have no idea. A lot of people know that stuff by heart, not me. Let's take a look. The last sitting one, and still sitting. Now, where was that guy? He's an acting Associate Attorney General, William J. Baer. And I forget, who are we even talking about having taken over? Let's go back to Barb's article so we can get the names right. Trump appointed Dana, good question as to the pronunciation here, Boente, B-O-E-N-T-E, Boente, to look the other way while his white nationalist-led White House continues their efforts to destroy the country. Message to Senate Democrats, says Barb, fight this regime. There's an update. Note that the Senate confirmed Yates, and this is good background, when Yates was nominated as Deputy Attorney General, confirmed by 84-12 in the Senate. That was way back in the old days of 2015. And let's see, other important points that she adds to this one from Matthew Miller, an embedded tweet from Matthew, who is as he puts it, recovering flack from DOJ, DSCC, and too many campaigns to count. And we've seen Matthew's tweets before. In our democracy, the president is not supposed to dictate to the attorney general how to interpret the law. This is a major breakdown in the rule of law. I would agree. By the way, might as well put the word out for Armando if he's not jumping out a window somewhere, or if you are. Call in and let us hear it, Armando, and don't jump. Full statement also included here. The full statement from the White House, including all the babyish language, right, was the acting Attorney General Sally Yates has betrayed the Department of Justice by refusing to enforce a legal order designed to protect the citizens of the United States. This order was approved as to form and legality by the Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel. I think that's actually not the case, but it may have been since its execution, since its signature, they may have, in fact, handed it over to OLC to have a look at it. But the other big story this morning is who didn't have a look at it before this thing was executed. All right, so there was Ms. Yates as an Obama administration appointee, and then the nonsense language. She's weak on borders, if she's ever even had an opportunity to say anything about the borders, and very weak on illegal immigration. Basically, though, that description, that the weak on anything, just doesn't apply to a deputy attorney general. It's just nonsense as a label. Anyway, it is time to get serious about protecting our country, the statement goes on. Well, that's good to know. Calling for tougher vetting for individuals traveling from 7 dangerous places is not extreme. It is reasonable and necessary to protect our country. Tonight, President Trump relieved Ms. Yates of her duties and subsequently named Dana Boente. Anybody know about the pronunciation of that one? U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia to serve as acting Attorney General until Senator Jeff Sessions is finally confirmed by the Senate, where he's being wrongly held up by he says Democrat, lowercase senators, for strictly political reasons. Gee whiz. I am honored to serve President Trump in this role until Senator Sessions is confirmed. I will defend and enforce the laws of our country to ensure that our people and our nation are protected, said Dana, whatever his name is, Boente, acting Attorney General. So he's very happy. He's got himself a promotion. But what happened to William Baer, the Assistant Attorney General? I don't know. So that's a question for you. Let's see. So let me look back at the executive order, because the executive order says ordinarily. Let's see. Okay. So the order that would name the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia to the position of Associate Attorney General or Deputy Attorney General or Attorney General, Acting Attorney General, as necessary. Also cites, well, that only applies if there's no AG or, if the Attorney General is not there, the Deputy Attorney General becomes the Acting Attorney General. If there's no Attorney General and no Deputy Attorney General, I would assume what this means is that the Associate Attorney General becomes Acting Attorney General. And then I guess maybe the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia becomes the Acting Deputy Attorney General. And the United States Attorney for the District of Minnesota becomes the Acting Associate Attorney General. And I don't know whether anything happens to the United States Attorney for the District of Arizona. I don't think they would move that person to the Eastern District of Virginia, but hey, who knows? I'm not sure exactly how that one works. Wow. All right. But it does cite a particular section of code saying during any period when the top-ranking people and any officers designated by the Attorney General pursuant to 28 U.S. Code 508 to act as Attorney General have died, resigned, or otherwise become available, etc. So let's take a look at that one, too. Why not? And see if that reveals anything about this. But, yeah, where's William Baer? Anybody know? We'll take a look at this section of code here. This has to do with the vacancies. In the case of a vacancy in the Office of Attorney General or of his absence or disability, the Deputy Attorney General may exercise all the duties of that office, and for the purpose of Section 3345 of Title V, I think that's what we called out before, the Deputy AG is the first assistant to the Attorney General. When by reason of absence, disability, or vacancy in the office, neither the Attorney General nor the Deputy Attorney General is available to exercise the duties of the Office of Attorney General, the Associate Attorney General shall act as the Attorney General. The Attorney General may designate the Solicitor General and the Assistant Attorneys General in further order of succession to act as Attorney General. That is, that was the existing law, modified by the executive order, but that still doesn't tell me where the Associate Attorney General is or why that person wasn't moved up in the line of succession, or whether they were skipped over or what. There was one other section of code cited here, the Federal Vacancies Reform Act. That was 5 U.S. Code 3345 that we saw cited there. I guess we could also look at the just to see if there's an organizational chart for the Department of Justice available. Oops, I clicked I'm feeling lucky. Let's see what that brings us up. Okay, well, here it is. Here's the chart. Office of the Attorney General up at the top. Deputy Attorney General, clearly uncontested second in command. And then from there, the org chart goes, they're running in parallel in terms of what? In terms of rank in the department. There's the Solicitor General and then the Associate Attorney General. And then there's these other sort of other offices that branch in off of that. But those would be the top officers inside the department. Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, Associate Attorney General. And there's the Solicitor General up there at the top, too. Then we're talking about different divisions and offices that the head of which, I guess, would stand next in line. There's Office of Legal Policy, Office of Public Affairs, Office of Legislative Affairs, Office of Legal Counsel, and the Office of Tribal Justice. Then off to the side and slightly lower ranking are the different divisions. FBI, Criminal Division, DEA, Bureau of Prisons, etc., etc. National Security Division, Office of Professional Responsibility, Office of the Inspector General, Office of the Pardon Attorney. I don't know whether no idea whether the succession statute goes that far down the chart, but I guess the last thing to do here is to Google up William Baer and in the news and see what happened to that guy. Where is he? And how come he's gotten skipped over? Does anybody know that? Because I thought that was a good point that Michael made here, that it was interesting that Trump would have stuck to the succession. Of course, it seems to have worked out for him. I don't know whether he knew ahead of time that this guy in the Eastern District of Virginia was going to cooperate, or whether it was a matter of I'll put him in there, and if he says no, I'll fire him too, or what. Let's see. Last hit I get for Baer here. Let's see. There's a mention of him on January 8th of this year. And it cites him as principal assistant. How did they say it? I gotta go back to the Google listing. Principal Deputy Associate Attorney General. Wow. At the Department of Justice. This is a Financial Times piece, Policing the Digital Cartels, which sounds kind of interesting as an area of exploration all by itself. But that's not post-inauguration. So I don't know what has happened to that guy, and maybe I should narrow our search here to the last week or so and see if we can't pull his name up in a hit this way. Let's see. 18 hours ago, let's see, William Baer is named, but is he named as and that's a different guy. So we're looking for William Joseph Baer, William J. Baer. I see a William W. Baer. Any mention of this guy? Is he gone? I'm curious, and I'm not finding any answers. So, any of you who feel like taking up the production role in that one, see if you can find out what happened to our pal here, William Joseph Baer, B-A-E-R. Still listed in Wikipedia, and they are famous for making those updates real quickly. Still says, currently the Assistant Attorney General for the United States Department of Justice Antitrust Division. I don't know. You tell me. Maybe that's, maybe they've swapped the order there. All right. Let's see. Here's a note coming in from Mimi Joe. Mimi Joe tweeting as, wow, how are we going to... World awaited. That's cute, right? W-O-R-L-D, world. You all know how to spell that. A-W-8. Get it? The number 8. E-D. It says, change of direction of Department of Justice as of now. Chris Geidner. He'll have a good feel for what's going on here. Let's take a look at Chris's tweet here. Breaking. Acting Attorney General Bonte rescinds Yates's memo, right? That would be her memo saying we're not going to enforce or defend the executive order. He rescinds that, directs the staff to defend the lawful orders of our president. That according to a piece he put up over at BuzzFeed, which we'll take a look at. Let's see if there's any mention of what's going on in this memo. No, not really, other than this is the guidance is, well, look, we're going to enforce the new executive order. Let's take a look at Chris's piece at BuzzFeed and see if there's any more clarity in this. You can see we're sort of feeling our way along here, but that's a pretty good metaphor for where we are as a country at this point. Of course, the upshot of all of this is that a guy who feels like he can fire people over the Department of Justice when they have these kinds of disagreements for enforcing the actual law, the state of the law, and as dictated by the federal courts, and their own professional opinion about the constitutionality of the order. If we can fire those people, then we can, of course, fire people who are, say, investigating the question of whether or not there was Russian interference on his behalf in the election. That's pretty easy to do once you get past this hurdle. Trump fires acting attorney general after she orders justice lawyers not to defend travel ban. That's the title of Chris's piece at BuzzFeed. Sally Yates has been relieved. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer tweeted on Monday night, hours after Yates, the acting attorney general, had ordered department lawyers not to defend President Trump's executive order in court. Dana Bonte, a federal prosecutor in Virginia, has been named by Trump as acting attorney general. So let's take a look. Sally Yates has been relieved, right? That was mentioned. That's Sean Spicer's tweet. In a statement, the White House announced that Bonte, U.S. Attorney for Eastern District of Virginia since 2015, would serve as acting Attorney General. Sworn in at 9 p.m. A few hours later, he rescinds the Yates letter. The statement from the Office of the Press Secretary asserts that Yates, quote, betrayed the Department of Justice. You remember that nonsense statement. In a letter sent to department lawyers hours earlier, Yates had written, for as long as I am the acting Attorney General, that was a couple of hours, it's a couple of days, but only a couple of hours after she said this, the DOJ will not present arguments in defense of the executive order, detailing that she is not convinced that defending the order met with her responsibilities as head of the Justice Department to always seek justice and stand for what is right. The striking moves came in the wake of 5 now district court rulings over the weekend halting enforcement of parts of the order, and the evening before, the Senate Judiciary Committee is due to vote on Trump's nominee for Attorney General, Senator Jeff Sessions. We'll get to him in a few minutes. Let's see, here's a little bit of information on Bonte. I wish I knew how to pronounce that name. Maybe I don't. It might not be relevant for long enough to care. I don't know. He was confirmed in December of 2015 as a U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, a jurisdiction that covers the Northern Virginia suburbs of Washington, D.C., Norfolk, and Richmond, a job he had previously held from 2008 to 2009, and in an acting capacity from 2013 until his confirmation. You see how long it took to get his confirmation, by the way? 2013 to 2015. I wonder how that happened. From 2012 to 2013, he served as U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Louisiana. An additional lawsuit against the executive order was filed by the Council on American Islamic Relations, with another announced by the Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson. Yates took over as acting Attorney General upon former Attorney General Loretta Lynch's departure from the job. She previously had been confirmed by the Senate. That'd be Yates. As Deputy AG in 2015. I have some audio for you on that, by the way. One question that had been raised prior to Bonte's appointment was the question of whether anyone other than Yates would be eligible under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, this is an interesting side note, by the way, to sign FISA warrants. Under the law, however, the acting Attorney General is specifically noted as being authorized to do so, and the White House confirmed such in a pool report. So, although a succession order signed by President Obama before leaving office would have meant that Zachary Fardin, as the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois, where are we on this then, would have been the next Senate-confirmed individual in the line of succession, the Northern District of Illinois. So there was a succession order signed by Obama, I guess, subsequent to the one we read that Michael sent us. I guess I'll have to open that up too. Man, how often do they change their minds about these things? So let me see that. What are we looking at here? Executive order providing an order of succession within the Department of Justice, a similar title to the one we read earlier. Yes. The one we read earlier, remember, was November 4th, 2010. This, January 13th, 2017. I guess that would supersede the November 2010 order. This one also providing an order of succession within the Department of Justice. Same styling up at the top, of course, authority vested in me, etc. The order of succession now would be, look at this. How do you like that? Well, Michael, we learn something new every minute on this show. Here's the line of succession that was supposed to happen. Let's see. I guess I better read through the top of the statement here. Okay, so if there's no Attorney General and no Deputy Attorney General, then it would still, again, go to the Associate Attorney General and any officers designated by the Attorney General pursuant to 28 U.S.C. 508 to act, blah, blah, blah. Well, if none of them are available, then the succession goes A, and this would make even more sense than the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. If you had to guess out there in the audience, we'll play a guessing game. If you had to guess what U.S. Attorney would make possibly more sense than the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, the answer is United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. You would think that would have been up at the top there. But I'll tell you this. The amount of federal business handled by Eastern District of Virginia and D.C. is probably comparable. This one, though, the brandy new one from, what was it, a week before inauguration, has it this way: the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois, wink wink, holy mackerel, Chicago, and C, United States Attorney for the Central District of California. I wonder what drove the change. And the change may be, oh my God, I'm giving up the reins to a complete whack job, and I need for the succession to be a more favorable one, and the people who have taken office since 2010 make me think that maybe it wouldn't be a super safe succession order. Like, for instance, who's first up in the succession order in my old executive order? Oh my God, Dana Bonehead, or whatever the guy's name is. I need to switch it for the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia. Who is the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, by the way? I don't know. Let's go to Google again. U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, let's say. Here we go. By the way, I'm saying U.S. attorneys a lot. Does everybody remember when there was this huge issue about the United States attorneys having to pass political litmus tests under the Bush administration? If you weren't sure why that was a super important thing, or you just figured, all right, well, it's always important to know who the district attorney is, or the United States attorney for these districts. But, because they handle all the cases in court. But, it's possible that they end up sitting at the top of the Justice Department if things go crazy wrong. Let's see. Meet the U.S. Attorney. Let's do that. Click. Channing D. Phillips. Is that current? On October 8th, 2015. By the way, have you noticed that all of these people were confirmed in 2015? What a strange thing that all these people were waiting from 2012, 2013, and then there was this sort of nuclear option thing, and then all the offices got filled again. To no avail, though, because apparently Trump has ignored the last executive order, which I guess at the very least that means that Michael's initial thought about why would Trump follow an Obama executive order without changing it. I guess the answer is you were right to suspect that. He didn't do it. So on October 8th, 2015, President Barack Obama nominated Channing D. Phillips to become United States Attorney for the District of Columbia. He had been serving as the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia since October 19th, 2015, pursuant to the Attorney General's appointment authority and subsequently by an order of the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. Is 2015 the wrong date on that? How could he be nominated on the 8th and had been serving since the 19th? That's clearly not right. Unless I'm reading this, is there something I'm not comprehending here? October 8th, 2015, he's nominated. He has been serving as U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia since the 19th of October, 2015, pursuant to the Attorney General's appointment authority. So I guess he was nominated, and then, maybe that makes some sense. He's nominated in 2015, not confirmed. There we go. Although sometimes the confirmation and nomination and appointment authorities, there's real terms of art to it too, and we use them interchangeably, and they really designate the dates on which the Senate acts and then the dates on which the President acts pursuant to the Senate's action. But I think what this is telling us is, on October 8th, 2015, Barack Obama says, I want Phillips to be U.S. Attorney. And the Senate doesn't do anything yet. And then on October 19th, the Department of Justice folks say, we really got to have a U.S. Attorney for D.C. And it's been a couple of days, and they're not going to move. It's going to be very slow. So, pursuant to the Attorney General's appointment authority, which we read before, right, they said, all right, well, Channing, you're in as acting U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. And then subsequently, by an order of the United States District Court for the District of Columbia, they said, boom, you're it too. Mr. Phillips' confirmation is pending with the United States Senate as of the writing of this piece, which was, let's see, last updated in April of 2016. I wonder if he was ever confirmed by the Senate. Maybe not, and maybe that played a part in them landing on the guy from the Eastern District of Virginia. Mr. Phillips formerly served as counselor to the Attorney General and also served as executive director for the Attorney General's Diversity Management Advisory Council. Oh my God, Trump's not going to want that guy. And was the day-to-day coordinator for diversity management issues within the department and the department's primary contact for external agencies on these issues. Let's see, he's been in the DOJ for many years, including service as interim U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, principal U.S. Assistant, these titles, Principal Assistant U.S. Attorney, and spokesman for the U.S. Attorney's Office. He first joined the U.S. Attorney's Office as an Assistant U.S. Attorney in 1994, if you want to go that far back. So he's got an interesting career there for a long time. And according to the executive order signed a week prior to the inauguration of Trump, he should have been next in line for the job. If he was still U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia at the time, I guess who knows how rapidly things changed following the inauguration. Is there anything anywhere that says different about maybe did he depart in any way? I don't know. So I guess I'm curious now, what's the excuse for ignoring executive order, there's no number on this one, the executive order of January 13th, 2017 in favor of the executive order of 2010. Or did they even rely on that? I don't know. The White House statement spent too much time talking about, who's weak on immigration and who's betraying what and are we going to make America great again, and not enough time on what was our authority to name this guy versus anyone else. Well, it's a wacky world out there. Oh, let's see. A couple of notes here. On Maddow last night, Justice tells me the fact checkers said it's pronounced Bente. Okay. I think that's probably about right. Let's see. Michael found something else here. Found statement on the departure. There we are. Statement on the departure of Principal Deputy Associate Attorney General Bill Baer. That's what we're looking for. Thanks very much. Let's open it up. That solves that mystery. The next mystery, of course, is why do we ignore the executive order of January 13th, 2017? Is it an option for him to do so? And the answer, I guess, well, he can do anything he wants until somebody stops him. But Section 3 of the 2017 executive order explicitly states Executive Order 13557 of November 4th, 2010 is revoked. So we wasted our time with that one. But it was good history, nonetheless. And it takes a while to track these things down. I appreciate it, Michael. Let's see what you've sent me here now. Statement on the departure of Bill Baer. That answers that question. It is dated Wednesday, January 18th, 2017. So that answers that question. That, though, should have put us at, what was the guy's last name? I only remember Channing now. It's a hell of a name. Channing Phillips. Where's Channing Phillips is the next question. Let's go over, though, to the statement on his departure. I don't know if we really need to read the statement, but we'll find out if there's anything interesting in here. So Baer, it says, will depart the Justice Department at the conclusion of Barack Obama's administration on January 20th. Then, nice pro forma things about how wonderful a person he was, although I suspect that there were people who, if we dig right down into it, the guy, of course, is in the antitrust division, I think that's right. And I wonder how many fans the guy really would have if we dug into the background. Because think about all the financial crimes that weren't prosecuted that we were annoyed about. Maybe it's for the best that Bill Baer isn't around. Who knows what kind of guy he was. I mean, politically, he clearly knew the right people in the Democratic Party, so might have been, while he may have been inclined not to pursue financial crimes the way you or I might have preferred, he nonetheless might have views more in line with ours in terms of the legality of the executive order on immigration. But now we're back to a new problem. Why, if there is no, and think about, by the way, the situation we're looking at here, no attorney general, because he's too ridiculous and too bigoted and whatever. We still have to wait and see. I mean, he will likely be confirmed despite all the evidence that he's incompetent to the task, and it's mounting daily, hourly, by the way. No attorney general, now no deputy attorney general. The assistant or the associate attorney general departed on the 18th or on the 20th, I guess. The statement was issued on the 18th. And then from there on, then we're talking about, okay, what should be operative is the executive order of January 13th, 2017. And the District of Columbia, U.S. Attorney for D.C. and for the Northern District of Illinois, and then for the Central District of California, all must be wondering, hey, when am I going to get this call? And the answer is you're not, because I don't know whether, I mean, I honestly, I couldn't give you any opinion on whether or not the White House, Trump's White House, knows about the order of January 2017, or whether they just were casting about for people that they thought would be cooperative and they landed on Bonte, or what. And we may never know, because I don't think they're adept enough at issuing statements and illustrating their authority for what they do, nor are they interested in illustrating their authority. The moment they lay out what their authority is, it opens it up for attack, and they would just rather not tell you what their authority is and leave us in the dark. All right. Anything else that I need to catch up on? Let's see. Comments from Michael here, U.S. Attorney for D.C., Channing Phillips. Mr. Phillips' confirmation is pending with the United States Senate, still acting. Is that relevant? Is that from the bio I was reading from the DOJ? Because that was last updated in 2016. I guess the place to look then, one last ditch effort. We're going to do all our research right here in front of you. And by the way, I don't know, maybe this is instructive. If you've ever wanted to know how to piece these sorts of puzzles together, you can listen along to the way I do my research and see if it's of any help to you. I would next be Googling, I need to go to the congressional record and find out whether there's ever any mention of Channing Phillips and see what that leads us to. What was the last mention of the guy in the congressional record? Let's see. We'll try it first as Channing D. Phillips and go from there. That usually will tell us if there's any statements in the record by senators about his confirmation, either or there's a vote or anything like that. That'll show up. Let's take a look here. Channing D. Phillips, and see if that brings anything up. Oh, I probably should have put that one in quotes there, right? Because that brings up every other possibility. So Channing D. Phillips, one more search here. Nominations. And then, all I've got is nominations, October 8th, 2015, so they may still be pending. I guess let me just take out the D just in case and try again as Channing Phillips. No match for that one. So, yeah, he may have been left hanging out there as acting, how did they put it in his bio here? Pending confirmation with the Senate, he's we'll read it all the way through one more time. He's been serving as United States Attorney for the District of Columbia since October 19th, pursuant to the Attorney General's appointment authority, and subsequently by an order of the District Court. I don't know whether the order of the District Court installs him as Attorney General, or rather for keep saying District Attorney, U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, or whether that keeps him in acting status, though. You would think that would say up top somewhere here. So let's see. Even if he's only acting, of course, the court's order wouldn't be rescinded automatically or in any other way simply because Donald Trump was inaugurated. And unless there's something in the news, and I guess that's the next thing to do, we need to search in the news for Channing Phillips. Did I spell the last name correctly? And see what we've got in the last week for him. Any news hits? January 27th. That's the other day. Charges dropped for journalist arrested while covering Trump inauguration here in The Guardian. Channing Phillips, the U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C., filed a motion to the District Superior Court on Friday requesting dismissal. So, we don't know. Here's something, by the way, that I was thinking of opening up anyway, so we'll follow this this path instead. Marty Lederman, writing at Just Security, Sally Yates did the right thing. This piece, of course, will cover some ground we've already covered, but it makes mention of Channing Phillips and might unravel some of that. Thanks to B. Maz for pointing that one out. Not intentionally. He just was having regular Twitter conversation, and I saw him say, Marty Lederman is right, and then linking to this particular article. So we must be doing something right, I guess, if I landed on this thing through some other mechanism. Where did that one go? Sally Yates did the right thing, says Marty Lederman, who I've read many times before, a good legal analyst, and you'll land on his page quite a lot if you do this kind of research. As everyone knows by now, Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates determined yesterday that so long as she was acting Attorney General, the Department of Justice will not present arguments in defense of the January 27th executive order limiting entry of persons from 7 majority Muslim nations, quote, unless and until I become convinced that it is appropriate to do so, unquote. Not surprisingly, President Trump promptly removed her from office and replaced her with an official who is willing to defend the executive order. My friends Jack Goldsmith and Ben Whitties take issue with Yates' decision, and I, by the way, have something tucked away from Ben regarding the executive order from a couple of days ago, and we'll take a look at that perhaps if we get time. Instead of announcing that she would refuse to defend the executive order in court, they insist she ought to have resigned. I don't think that's right. So Goldsmith and Whitties say she should have just resigned. Who are we reading? Which one? These guys, I see them all the time, and sometimes I forget which one's which. Marty Lederman, yes, is writing, I don't think that that's right. She did it correctly. Let's read why. For one thing, it's not clear why they think the particular form of Yates' dissent is so important. Yates knew full well that she would not be the acting AG today, or within a few days at least, whether by way of resignation or removal. She also knew that in short order the president would ensure that the department is run by someone, as it turns out that's Dana Bonte, presumably followed by Jefferson Sessions, who do think the order is lawful and defensible. Therefore, either way, lawyers in the Department of Justice will, in fact, defend the legality of actions DHS, Department of Homeland Security, takes to implement the executive order. If that's the case, what's the harm in Yates not resigning? Indeed, if Matt Apuzzo's story today, in the New York Times he's referring to, is accurate, Yates did consider resigning, and she chose not to do so for a very pragmatic reason. So that the official who would automatically succeed her as acting AG, here's the part we're missing in our puzzle, she didn't resign so that the official who would automatically succeed her as acting AG would not have had to confront the same decision she did about the executive order, just days before a new Attorney General takes office. I'm not sure exactly who that would have been under the prescribed order of succession, and this link points to the January 13th, 2017 executive order. Perhaps it would have been, he says, Lee Loftus, a career officer who is the Assistant Attorney General for Administration, or the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Channing Phillips. Okay, so just for a pause there, who's Lee Loftus and why? Without getting too far into who that is, well, I mean, there's a linked profile, and in case you are interested, he was appointed Assistant Attorney General for Administration on December 15th, 2006. So we're going back to the previous administration. Prior to his appointment, served as the Acting Assistant Attorney General for Administration, and earlier, the Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General / Controller, Justice Management Division. Another long-time Department of Justice officer. Goes all the way back to 1982 with the Department of Justice, by the way. And what this should indicate to you more than anything, I don't know if his bio necessarily tells us that much, but what it tells you is we are clearing out offices of top departmental people in every department. We know that this happened. I told you about the org chart that just flew by earlier today about the Department of State. And we noted, I think, on the show a few days ago that the top levels of the Department of State also had been cleared out. Now the Department of Justice is also clear. We're talking about people who are being passed over for succession or whose offices are now vacant, who have been in the Department of Justice since the 80s. That's the kind of institutional knowledge now gone, and possibly at the worst time in American history when this idiot president with his childlike worldview and weirdo Svengalis on each shoulder are whispering in his ear because he has no idea what the hell to do on his own and just putting in front of him things to be signed. Okay, so why is Lederman questioning here who would be next in the line of succession? I guess it isn't particularly clear. Armando, if you're free, Armando, please, by all means, join us if you can by phone. If not, continue to send your notes there. That's fine. I'll take a look at this. And I'll tell you what he's telling me. Lederman is responding to Jack Goldsmith, who was in justice during Bush and defended warrantless wiretapping and did nothing to stop torture. Yeah, I remember Jack Goldsmith. All of these guys I've been reading for a long time. Is the Goldsmith model one to follow? No, but I don't know what. Who are you asking? I'm saying here that Lederman appears to have it. At least there's no reason not to think he's right about this. It certainly makes no difference to me how she decides to exit. She was going to exit. But here's the question. He's unclear on whether Lee Loftus, who is a assistant attorney general, or at least an acting assistant attorney general, doesn't step into the role before any of the U.S. attorneys named in the 2017 executive order. I guess I too am curious as to, well, first we have to settle the question of when does the 2017 executive order even become operative? Is it only after they run out of associate attorneys general for all of the divisions of the department, after which we start turning to the U.S. attorneys for the various named districts? Or is it as soon as you're past the principal associate attorney general, you go to this list? And I guess nobody's sure, but one answer would have been, under one interpretation, whatever remaining assistant attorney general you have, and Lee Loftus, I guess, is the highest ranking of them. Or if you think that that's not the way to interpret it, the only other reading is you go to the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Channing Phillips, and somehow we've instead landed on the top named office in a since rescinded 2010 executive order, and I haven't seen an answer for that one. Armando is with us now. Have you seen anything about that, Armando? Like, why did we end up with Bonte? How did he get into the order of succession again?
Yeah, well, my feeling on that is, and I know as much as you do, that
we got nothing.
The executive order always provides discretion to the president. So, and let's face it, I mean, he's the president.
Yeah.
He can basically rewrite as he speaks, the actual executive order.
That's true too.
And he just said, "Oh, I'm going to this guy." Now, what do we know what happened? We really don't know if Trump went through the list of people who, according to that executive order, would have succeeded Yates. My own feeling is they probably had their eye on this guy all day. And probably had already heard noises. I just don't think Yates fell out of the blue, is what I'm saying on this. I'm sure she told people this is a problem when I'm looking at this, and I don't think we can defend it. And there was, I feel confident there was back and forth, and then, at that point, it happened very quickly. I just feel like they had this guy lined up all day.
Well, he's close by. And like I said, I mean, the Eastern District of Virginia is one where everybody at Main Justice will know what that guy's about.
Right. I mean, and I would go further. I think Trump, White House knew what he was about. They asked him, what was the question posed to him? I'm sure, well, can you defend this? And he said, sure.
Yeah, for that job,
and
okay.
That was that.
Yeah.
Now, listen, I mean,
yeah.
Can you hold a differing opinion of whether that's defensible or not? Remember, I think that the real test for Yates, and what some people try to deflect from the Sessions video, which I assume you discussed earlier,
which
about
asking,
the one where he's asking Yates.
I haven't played it yet.
Confirmation hearing in
mentioned
2015.
It. You want me to roll that? I have that handy.
Well, let's roll it so we can discuss it in context, because I think that informs a lot of what we're talking about.
Many of you will perhaps already have seen this, but what I've got here, let's see, where is it? Good question. Where did I put this?
Well, while you're looking for it, let me set it up for you.
Here we go. I've got it.
It's the confirmation hearing for Yates to be named Deputy Attorney General.
Yes.
And
right.
It wasn't ancient history. It was 2015.
Yes, and so I will roll this one, and important to note for people who are watching at home and are only getting the audio, you'll hear the question, and I'll turn up our audio here so that I can hear it too. The questioner here is important as well. It's Sally Yates answering the questions before the Judiciary Committee in the Senate for her confirmation hearings as Deputy Attorney General. The questioner is Senator Jefferson Beauregard Sessions, now Attorney General designate. Take a listen.
Well, you have to watch out because people will be asking you to do things you just need to say no about. Do you think the Attorney General has a responsibility to say no to the President if he asks for something that's improper? A lot of people have defended the Lynch nomination, for example, by saying, well, he appoints somebody who's going to execute his views. What's wrong with that? But if the views the president wants to execute are unlawful, should the Attorney General or the Deputy Attorney General say no?
Senator, I believe that the Attorney General or the Deputy Attorney General has an obligation to follow the law and the Constitution and to give their independent legal advice to the president.
Well, there you have it. That's pretty convincing, and you couldn't ask for a better setup. Sessions to ask Yates, what do you think? Should the Attorney General or a Deputy Attorney General stand up and say no when they're asked to enforce an unlawful order? Or are you a good Nazi? You say, I was only following orders. And she says, nope, you got to do what's right. Jefferson Sessions, of course, about to do what's wrong if he gets the nomination. But an amazing question from him and a fantastic answer from her, and he intends to do the opposite.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what's interesting. I mean, unlike, say, John Roberts, her testimony under oath was carried forward here yesterday. She lived up to her testimony. I would also point you to, and I don't know if you have it handy, you should look at a statement made in this on the same nomination, Yates to Deputy AG. He praises her because she understands, I'm paraphrasing, that she understands that her client is not the President of the United States. It's the American people.
Yeah.
And that she respects an independent Justice Department.
I noticed that there were a lot of the record was replete with embarrassing, really, references to Yates because, well, she was overwhelmingly confirmed, and so there's all kinds of. And when I say the record, I mean the congressional record is full of statements from Republicans praising her nonpartisan approach to the job, her balanced approach to the job, and they kept saying, she's prosecuted Democrats and Republicans alike, and she never lets the politics of the situation get in the way of the right legal decision until today, at which point she's weak and horrible, and I can't believe the Republic has survived her service to this point. Thank God she's gone. It's weird, to say the least.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And there's something else that's bothering me a bit.
Yeah.
And frankly, it came from Nick Bauman about, hey, what's the big deal? Presidents can fire AGs.
Yeah.
Was sort of his argument. And he says, if you really care about that, you should be arguing for a constitutional amendment that makes the AG independent. I said, listen, not everything's in the Constitution.
Right.
The norm of an independent judiciary, or at least the fiction, if you like, but we all pretended that the Justice Department, while yes, a member of the president's cabinet, and on policy issues, is to the degree that they feel morally comfortable doing it, they carry out the president's policy issues. For example, if the president said, I'm going to dedicate justice resources to stamping out the illegal trade of, eucalyptus trees into the United States, maybe nonsensical, but it's not.
I hate eucalyptus trees.
I just picked an absurd example, obviously.
I see.
Say, well, this is stupid, but it's not unlawful, and it's a policy question.
Yeah.
But I always put this hypothetical and said, listen, the norm is the Justice Department is independent. At least we played that game, and it's an important principle. And I gave this hypothetical. Suppose the now acting Attorney General is called into Donald Trump's office and said, I want you to prosecute Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And you say to him, well, we cleared her. I don't care. You're my subordinate, and you do what I say. Prosecute her.
All right.
And he doesn't. And the president fires him because he doesn't prosecute Hillary Clinton. Is that okay? There's nothing in the Constitution to stop him in theory. Of course it's not okay.
Yeah, no, that's the sort of thing that we used to depend on political norms for. The optics
Political
of it.
norms.
The optics are terrible. Where's my optics, guys, by the way? I haven't seen an optics article in 2 weeks. I wonder why. I wonder what happened about 2 weeks ago.
What happened was, as usual, what happens with Republicans, optics matter less when Republicans are in charge, apparently.
Well, they have such bad optics. It's no wonder they're to be de-emphasized.
The attorney generals don't get fired very often. In fact, I can't remember the last time an attorney general was fired. You can argue Gonzalez was fired or asked to resign, but that was political. It wasn't because he refused to do what the president said.
Yeah.
That was, interestingly, you'll remember that scandal, David, because it's a related concept. That U.S. attorney generals were being fired because they were not engaging in political prosecutions against Democrats.
Yes, U.S. attorneys.
U.S. attorneys.
Right. Everyone now remembers. That should be on everybody's mind now. If you somehow forgot that scandal, this will bring it all roaring back.
I don't think it's an unrelated point. I mean,
not at all.
Why is that problematic, but this isn't? Now, look. The president, I actually do think that there is a problem that the Justice Department is charged with defending the policies of the United States government in court. I know that sounds weird to say, but aren't they the government's lawyers? I think that's a problem. I think the fact that the Justice Department has really very important prosecutorial duties and duties like overseeing the enforcement of antitrust policies, civil rights policies, etc., that really just require a separation from the administration. And that, to me, is undermined when the Justice Department is the agency that goes to court on behalf of the rest of the administration. I think that they should have each department of the executive branch to have its own legal departments to defend that. So justice can be separate.
That's an interesting idea. It wouldn't take much to restructure that. They all do have their own legal departments.
Yeah, they do.
Obviously.
It's just a question of, okay, well, let's get some litigators, I guess.
And you probably have to restructure thing. I'm sure there's statutes that would need amending.
Sure.
But yeah.
But then the point I came in with you and what caught my eye, because was Lederman's article, which I think is very good as well. And what he's talking about, I thought, which was important, was what was the best way to register your dissent?
Yes. Okay. Lederman.
Right? And it's not just like gray dissent. The one thing that people might have had a point about, but then I thought it through, and I think the article about protecting successors is well taken. Why did Yates not resign and make a big stink? Well, there's 2 points, it seems to me. Number one is that the operation of the Justice Department itself, she wanted to make a point that we are independent. Okay, if Trump wants to say we're not, let him say so. I'm not resigning. If he doesn't like me using my independent judgment, let him fire me. So people can see that the Justice Department is not going to be permitted to use its independent judgment. If you resign, you don't make that point, it seems to me. That's number one. Yeah. Number two, she really, I think, as a question of courtesy to those successors, even this fellow Belmonte who came in, she did not want to put to paper that there was no reasonable argument that this is lawful, because I think she believes that. I don't think it's just a policy dispute. I think there's a real question of the ethical duty of a lawyer. When a lawyer stands up in court, you folks may remember or not, those who have practiced law with the law school, in theory, we're officers of the court, and we're not supposed to present frivolous arguments. I can't think of a non-frivolous argument to defend this executive order. I've looked at the legal scheme some, and I'm very convinced by the arguments that have been presented that Trump's executive order on its face is not lawful. I'm actually very curious to see the LLC memo that says it is lawful, because I don't see how it could be.
I don't know that it hasn't been released. The original reporting was that there wasn't one, that they bypassed everybody.
Well, so the new acting attorney general said that the LLC has passed on it, and that's the basis of his rescinding of Yates' order. I haven't seen that, but let's remember what that means. Just because the LLC says it.
True.
And here I disagree with Belmonte's statement that I can just rely on OLC. No, you have to apply your own independent legal judgment. OLC, during the Bush administration, and when Jack Goldsmith was there, and I do want to take a shot at Jack Goldsmith, because Jack Goldsmith always airbrushes his own history out of these discussions. Jack Goldsmith says, well, she should have resigned, blah, blah, blah. This is insubordination. And I said, well, it isn't insubordination if you accept the political norm that the Justice Department should be applying its independent judgment. Well, you either believe that or you don't. If you don't, then you say, well, fine, we're all lackeys, and let's stop pretending the Justice Department's independent. Jack Goldsmith stayed in, and maybe he made choices that I wouldn't have made, but maybe they're defensible. But they need to be noted when discussing how other people, other justice officials, and later in time behave. Jack Goldsmith didn't do anything about the torture memos. Jack Goldsmith, in the famous incident where Comey made his integrity name, said that the president had the absolute power to engage in warrantless wiretapping. That was a ridiculous position, unsupported by any case law, and frankly was out of the mainstream. Jack Goldsmith did not cover himself in glory, nor did he do anything that we can know of to stop the pernicious activities of the Bush administration with regard to laws of war. So when Jack Goldsmith decides he's going to critique some other justice officials' approach, I always have to go back to, wait a second, well, let's see how you did. Oh, you did terrible on warrantless wiretapping. You did terrible on torture. So basically you were horrible in terms of registering dissent as a Justice Department official. You stopped nothing. You did nothing. Why should we listen to you exactly on these things? I think that's a valid point.
Yeah.
For me, it is.
Sure.
I mean, I think chutzpah is a word that I would use for Jack Goldsmith. He wants to apply his legal analysis, fine. When it comes to norms and ethics and how to register dissent while being a Justice Department official, the last person I would listen to about it is Jack Goldsmith.
I think that's probably fair. That's probably why we're not reading any of his stuff, even though it's all linked here in Lederman's. We're sticking with Lederman on this one.
You know, all those guys are friends. Lederman, him, and Wittes, and all these guys. And they all pretend like, Jack Goldsmith wasn't a part of a pernicious period in our history. Jack Goldsmith was a part of a pernicious period in our history. He's not he can't be a moral arbiter for me. I said, wait a second. You've never actually explained yourself for what you did. Am I supposed to just pretend it didn't happen? I won't.
No. Well,
I know.
Yeah,
I know all these other guys who are his buddies will, but I'm not going to.
Right. Well, that's an important addition to. This is an insightful thing, I think, and fairly written over here. Lederman's piece, and I think probably the more convincing in terms of what Yates should have done to make her exit. But it does. You're right. References Goldsmith and others without context. For this blog, I mean, the people who read this blog, they probably know, and some of them don't care what the context is. They know it, but they don't care about Goldsmith's background, or they agree. Others, of course, disagree strongly, but they've been reading these guys' blogs for years, and so it's well known. So for the rest of us, it's an important point to bring up. These people that he's casually referring to, well, I disagree with this person, are people whose records are beclouded by torture. So keep that in mind. So an excellent point. Thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah. You might have noticed, I mean, we don't know, it hasn't been verified, but no one's saying it's not her, that Sally Yates has on Twitter now as at I am Sally Yates.
Oh.
We don't know if it's her, but there was an email sent out at 2 a.m. Where she said, "Thank you everyone for supporting and standing by. I took an upheld oath to defend the Constitution, not to someone's personal likings." I don't know if that's her.
I don't know either. She had a Twitter account, but as an DOJ
official. This, of course, is she needed to create a new one. Yeah. And there has been, this has two tweets. Her second tweet is, "It was an honor serving the people of the United States as Deputy Acting Attorney General. We all make America great. Diversity is the win." Now, that's a statement that would surprise me, and I'm slightly skeptical that this actually is Sally Yates for that second one.
All right.
Diversity is a win, in my view, but it's really not an issue that is central to Sally Yates' point, unless you think her point is about the imprudence of Trump's executive order. So I'm a little skeptical, but we'll see if that turns out to be.
I'll tell you what,
Sally Yates.
I think you're right in your skepticism. I looked at, she had a Twitter account already, but as I was thinking about it, as I recall, it was just at Sally Q, that's her middle initial, Sally Q Yates. And though she had in her in her bio, in her profile, that she was Deputy Attorney General, that's easily changed. It wasn't like she had Sally Q Yates DOJ as her Twitter handle. And I've looked it up, and she just now has the same thing. At Sally Q Yates, it's now, you know how you can change you can put your real name there, and that it's displayed, and then your at address remains the same. So it's still Sally Q Yates, and it now just reads former DAG Sally Yates. The official Twitter account of former Deputy Attorney General Sally Q Yates of the at the Justice Department. This account is no longer active, though, it does say. So I'm not really sure what to make of it. I don't know why it couldn't be active. She certainly is entitled to tweet as Sally Q Yates and identify herself as former Deputy Attorney General, but maybe she decided to start over, maybe not. Maybe she decided, well, as long as I'm free of that obligation to speak, even as a former Justice Department official, maybe I should just start over. And I feel like being political from here on in. I should do it under a totally different handle there. So I don't know. Who knows which is driving it? But at any rate, something has happened. She's been active on Twitter and maintaining her accounts over the last 24 hours, so it could be her, I guess. Still, I don't really know why she feels the need to tweet under a different one, but
I don't know. I just
weird.
think the language used is a bit
so be careful.
off
I
to
guess
me.
a good warning, well worth noting, since you always have to be careful. You don't want to be retweeting things only to find out that it's another one of those parody accounts and everybody has to go back and delete things. It's annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It could be her,
Yeah.
but I do know the grain of I have skepticism that it is her. I'm not watching the committee hearing this morning on Sessions, which obviously comes on the heels of yesterday, and there's disputes now as to whether Sessions was involved in drafting the EO.
Yeah, that was reported yesterday. Apparently, that it was claimed that he had a big hand in it, which is also, well, I would like to say it's hard to believe because it was such a sloppy job that you don't want to find out that the guy who's about to be Attorney General is that sloppy. On the other hand, I mean, he may just have no regard for anything at all. But there's been a lot of weird reporting, by the way, about who helped draft that thing. Not only is Sessions rumored to have been involved, but that staffers at the Judiciary Committee, Republican staffers, were approached about helping to draft that and were asked by the Trump transition to sign non-disclosure agreements and not tell their bosses, the senators who are the Republican senators who are on the Judiciary Committee, that they helped. And so therefore not to give their bosses any kind of heads up on the fact that this thing was coming and might be wildly disruptive. And so both the senators were caught by surprise. The Homeland Security and Defense departments, both of which headed by the former generals who were supposed to stand up and make sure they didn't go too crazy, also not consulted. And they both are livid, but, you know, what does it mean to be livid as a secretary to Donald Trump? Nothing. And also livid at not being consulted is still Secretary-designate at the State Department, Rex Tillerson, who also thinks, well, it does have something to do with other countries. Maybe someone should have told me. Nobody knew anything. Nobody was consulting anybody. But they were talking to the 20 and 30-somethings at, actually some of these staff attorneys at the Judiciary Committee are 40 and 50-somethings occasionally. But interesting that one, that they were consulted, two, that they didn't tell their bosses, three, that they were asked to sign and did sign NDAs. We forgot about that as an issue with Trump. and apparently he does intend to carry it over into his presidency.
Well, I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about those NDAs. The reality of it is that they're unenforceable. The federal government is the employee. Really, I mean, the president can't. There's classification power, but an NDA goes well beyond that. And if called before Congress, but of course this Congress, my God. Mm-hmm. Look, I mean, here's the problem. I think this is, we've talked about the nuts and bolts, but what's the overarching theme here? This is an administration that obviously is not going to care about the rule of law. And they reflect it in the main law enforcement agency of the government, which is the Department of Justice. And it's, you talk about Nixon, had this, with the fellow, his FBI director went to jail, L. Patrick Gray, because he was serving the White House instead of his duty to serve the law. That's how we look at the FBI, and Gray went beyond violating his duties. He committed crimes of covering up crimes. The FBI director. Now, Comey's self-worth is such that he's not going to formally, destroy evidence or cover it up. But he's also a lackey as well. Is he going to really stand up in this way as FBI director? I doubt it. Jefferson Beauregard Sessions is a Trump man through and through. All the things that would worry you about Trump in terms of policy is reflected in Jeff Sessions. The very famous fellow now, or infamous, is Stephen Miller, David.
Yes.
He was a Jefferson Sessions aide who was lent to Donald Trump early on in Donald Trump's campaign. Remember, Sessions was one of his earliest endorsers. Yeah. And you might recall that I talked about and wrote about a March 2016 Trump rally that I attended in Florida. One of the feature speakers at this rally was one Stephen Miller. Mm-hmm. And he delivered as racist and incendiary speech as I've personally seen in a campaign. He accused Senator Marco Rubio of being complicit in the death of a woman's son who was killed by an undocumented alien.
Oh, yes, okay.
That is the Trump administration. Senator Sessions is very much of that stripe, and Stephen Miller is the connection to that. Here's the problem on any level. The Justice Department is thought to be different. And this, I go back to the norm of the institutional independence, in theory, from the White House of the Justice Department. At least in theory. Certainly on issues of law enforcement, etc. Jefferson Sessions, while he may be qualified in the conventional sense as a lawyer to be the Attorney General, his lack of independence from the White House disqualifies him from our usual notion of how the Justice Department should function.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm not watching the hearings today, but personally, the take from the 2015 Yates hearing is the thing I would hammer. Said, listen, are you basically going to suspend your independent legal judgment to follow the orders of the White House? He says, of course not. It says, well, what happens when you disagree with the White House's legal analysis and say that you're not going to go along with it? What happens? Well, it says, well, I won't do it. Well, what's to stop President Trump from firing you? He just fired the acting attorney general for not exercising her independent judgment? I think that's a question that I would like to know how he answers.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, it could, if he's any good at all, he can tap dance through
all
that,
right.
obviously.
What's the tap dance?
I don't know. I don't answer hypothetical questions. That's the usual usual tap dance.
All right. Well, with all due respect, Senator, it's not hypothetical. We just saw it happen.
Oh, yes, it is. Anyway.
Okay, so you asked if she would say no to the White House. She did, and she was fired. What's your view of that?
I don't know that he isn't in a. I don't know that it demands that much of a tap dance. I mean, he may say, well, that's the way it ought to go. You stand up on principle. I would hope I would do the same thing. Would I get fired by a Trump White House? Possibly, yeah. I guess it could happen. I mean, I don't know how it will happen because the practical fact of the matter is what happened here is a difference of opinion over legalities as between the White House and the acting attorney general. That won't happen with me because my views are theirs. They don't have independent legal judgment. Here's the problem. I'm supposed to be exercising independent legal judgment independent of the White House. They don't have legal judgment. They ask me what legal judgment should be. So we're going to be in sync. It's not going to happen. But if it should, let me put it this way. If this White House ends up disagreeing with me over what's legal, there's going to be a problem. Yeah, I might get fired. But I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt that I'm going to stand up to him.
Yeah.
But at any rate, the politics of it is interesting, I suppose. I haven't thought about it too much. I'm sure that the comparisons to Nixon aren't going to help him today. The Muslim ban has turned out to be, a real Waterloo for Trump, and Trump being Napoleon in that metaphor. I'm slightly surprised that it sort of blew up this way politically. The rollout was bad. Nobody wanted to, admit that they had anything to do with it. Mm-hmm. My own theory is it was Bannon and Miller. I don't know. I think that reporting is accurate myself. I don't know if you guys, if you disagree.
No, I think that it certainly feels right, both from the language and its execution.
Yeah, the execution is amateurish and wrong. It talks about entry into the country as an immigration law concept, and that's been eliminated. Actually, I don't know what they call it now, but that's just not the right term of art. And legal documents have to conform with other legal documents. The law. The various, the Immigration and Naturalization Act of '65, plus obviously all the amendments there too that have passed. And as you've pointed out many times, what happens with subsequent laws is the codified laws are, there'll be amendments to specific provisions of it, and that's what your point of reference should be as an executive order. The other problem that has not been answered, and I don't know, you read things on Twitter, you don't know how many of them are true, but to what degree was there contempt of court by CPB in particular with regard to the 5 different court orders that told them what they needed to do? They certainly slow-walked it to comply. Were they out and out defiant yesterday? I don't know that they're enough to know. There's been a lot of talk about what happened at Dulles, which would have been in some regard, under the authority of the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, who is, of course, now the acting Attorney General. I think it's uncharted waters because what we've seen in the 11 days is, rule of law is not high on the list for Trump.
No, clearly not. in a number of ways, and not just surrounding this, obviously. We've seen it at a couple different places, and we've noted it along the way. It's coming to a head here, that's for sure. But
yeah, I think the other thing that's weird, it was a political calculation. We talked about this before. A lot of these executive orders really aren't really orders of any.
Oh, that's true too.
They're basically press releases.
Yeah, even the ones that are actually styled. Well, all of them, the ones that are styled executive orders and the styles of memorandum, they are, and this is where I think it indicates that Miller is doing a lot of this work. I think Miller is responsible for the language of it. They say, you're the wordsmith, give us something that sounds powerful and moving, and they want, and they
he was a key speechwriter for Trump during the campaign, so that wouldn't be hard for him to capture Trump's voice.
So so he's adept at doing that, and to a large extent, Trump's voice and just ended up becoming Miller's voice, and vice versa. And as far as the implementation goes, that feels a lot like Bannon, where ordinarily you would have people, and if there are people inside the Trump White House, it's entirely possible that there are people there that say, this is really gonna create problems you don't anticipate. We want to do this cleanly. We should do it this way instead of that way. And I think Bannon is saying, don't worry about unanticipated consequences. The more chaos, the better from this. The more insulting it is, the more chaotic it is, the more it makes it look like we don't know what we're doing, the better, as far as I'm concerned, for whatever reason. Not really sure why he's so interested in not looking like he knows what he's doing, but he certainly seems to be interested in the chaos. And that's still the abiding point to me about the salient point about the alt-right and what they're really about. We can't quite figure it out. We can't quite define them. The only thing that's been consistent, as far as I can see, is if there's an opportunity to do something with additional insult to political enemies, it's done. How can I write this thing? If I could also put in there, kill all the Jews, we should do that. Can I get that in there? And even to that, Miller may say, I can't wordsmith that. That doesn't make any sense. But implementation in ways that are additionally, that add insult to injury. People noted, well, I can't believe that he issued this order on Holocaust Remembrance Day. I don't know whether he knew it or not, but as soon as it came to his attention, he was probably, bonus, fantastic. What could be better than doing this on Holocaust Remembrance Day? I only wish it was, Yom Kippur. I would have done it then, but it's not. So, it certainly smells like those two guys are behind it. I don't know what the truth is about Sessions' involvement, though. I guess today's the day to ask. But even if he's not involved, this really should, in ordinary circumstances, should set things way back. And it won't, because they're just going to vote party line, I'm fairly certain, with the possible exception of some of our Democratic goofballs deciding to go along. I don't think we're going to lose, probably won't lose very much in the way of Republicans, although they really are going out of their way, trying very hard to insult people like McCain and Graham to see if either how much they can get away with, or what do they have to do to push these guys to no on nominations, and to the extent that they won't switch over to no, I'm sure it's sport to Bannon. Let's insult them even further and see what can we get away with. Can we call them cucks in an actual White House press release and get away with it? I don't know. Let's try it. I really don't know what the truth is about all these. I mean, I've got some articles, and we'll include them in the roundup that claim that he had something to do with it, and then I have some backup for the claim that the staffers were doing the work on this over from the Judiciary Committee. And that raises some questions, too. I mean, that's going to be interesting to see whether, I can't watch the hearings this morning, but I would love to see a Democratic senator, asking his questions about the order and its execution, and what do you do if the department isn't vetting it, or do we even have a legitimate answer on whether OLC had a look at this thing or not? And to turn around and say, by the way, some of the people sitting behind us today apparently knew all about this for weeks and didn't say anything to the people sharing the dais with me. and we're speaking to one another as senators, as colleagues, your staff knew about this stuff, and they didn't have anything to say, and you are showing up here today with your pants down, asking questions of an attorney general designate, who may or may not have had a hand in drafting something so horrible that within 15 minutes, 5 federal judges of all stripes and all across the country found it to be facially illegal. And he's sitting here saying it's not, and I wrote it, and, you know, by the way, so did the people behind you. You're left with your pants down. You got no idea what's going on in your own portfolio here.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty remarkable. Anyway, I found that Grassley statement I mentioned to you.
Okay.
Let me quote it from you. It says that I support her nomination, and I hope that she will show independence as she provides leadership at the department. As she told us during her hearing, she is aware that her client is, quote, the people of the United States, not the president, not the Congress. It's the people of the United States. Mm-hmm. Apparently, everyone's forgotten how much they like that.
Well, I don't know. He got his wish, certainly. I mean, if he's smart, he comes out and says, well, I hoped that she would exercise independent judgment, and she did. That's not to say that the president can't fire her for it. He can. Okay. So, okay.
Well, all right. That pretzel is interesting. Well, if she can exercise her independence but get fired, what's the value of that independence?
I don't know, right? Is it illegal for me to rob this bank? Not per se, but you will go to jail for it. If you're willing to do the time, go ahead.
Exactly. Right? I admire and encourage you to rob that bank.
If you do, be aware that I will vote to convict you. But you did have free will. That's what I meant.
But you exercised your independent judgment, and that's what matters.
So, all right, we'll see how those hearings are going, and we'll see whether it creates any strife as between Republican senators and their staffers. I have a feeling it will not, because they're mostly dumb. But
David, here's something remarkable.
Yes?
You know that tonight at 8 p.m., the President of the United States is scheduled to announce who he will nominate to be the Supreme Court, to fill the vacancy on the Supreme Court.
Properly said, 7 Central.
7
because it's obviously
and we literally
TV
are
event.
not talking about
that's true.
A Supreme Court nominee.
Well, we don't know who it's going to be.
Well, they say it's one of two people, but who knows? You know, it's this Hardiman fellow, which, by the way, funniest story I saw yesterday was that Trump has a choice between blue collar and Ivy League elite. Because one of the guys, Gersak, who I admit not knowing a lot about, but apparently he's one of these Federalist Society types. And, you know, he went to Harvard and Yale and yada, yada. Typical, you know, profile for one of those Federalist Society Supreme Court figures. And the intellectual legal part of the right wing is very gung-ho about that guy. He's the white shoe option. The blue collar option is a fellow named Hardiman, who is a judge on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals.
The bricklaying judge.
The bricklaying judge. I mean,
he's got a pickup truck and everything.
But you know, the blue collar guy. You know where he went to college?
No.
Notre Dame. You know where he went to law school?
No.
Georgetown. Salt of the earth.
Yeah. Oh, more so than perhaps. Everyone's sick of those Ivy Leaguers, but, well, there's nothing wrong with Georgetown, certainly. Or Notre Dame, for that matter.
There's nothing wrong with Notre Dame. This isn't, he didn't go to public, you know, South Central Pennsylvania Tech.
Right.
He went to Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean.
Who are we kidding? Blue collar?
Well, because it's in Indiana, so, right. If you went to Grinnell and Rice.
He went to Grinnell and whatever. What would be the Heartland elite school, law school? Northwestern? I don't know. You can't say Chicago anymore because people don't think of it that way.
Right.
It's just striking optics and the nonsense reporters will just scribble.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, and you know, well, Third Circuit, isn't that coastal elite?
Yeah, it's a coastal elite, Philadelphia. And of course, last night, look, George Tenet was in Washington, D.C. But blue collar, baby.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about these guys.
He should wear a blue robe.
Yes, give him a blue robe.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about these
right?
guys. One of the things I would argue for is that Donald Trump is not entitled to his nominee. And I would urge taking all necessary steps to block him because I believe his presidency is clouded by questions, not just Putin, but frankly his mental state, I think, is open to question. And in terms of the precedent and the norms of how we treat a sitting president's Supreme Court nominee, well, we have an example from last year, which basically, I think, makes any objection to filibustering any Trump nominee, frankly, part of the new norm, a norm that was created by Republican senators in 2016 when they refused to even hold a hearing on President Obama's nominee, Merrick Garland. I don't know that there's much more to argue about from that perspective. Now, there was a strange story in CNN, keeping the powder dry story, which we've heard so many times.
Yes.
Because if they filibuster him, the Republicans will nuke the filibuster, and we need it for the next one. The next one.
Yes. You can explain the theory of that is supposedly, he's replacing Scalia, who was, of course, an ultra-conservative voice. So if he were to replace him with an ultra-conservative, we'd end up with the court we used to have before. And so the real worrisome one is the next one, which could change the balance, which was out of balance before. Yeah, I mean, it was a terrible composition of the court before. So I guess they think, well, if we go back to that terrible composition, we haven't lost any ground, is the thinking. It's not good thinking. That's just what the thinking is. But, that'll pose a problem.
Well, I mean, forget about, the Senate is granted by the Constitution in express terms the power to approve the president's nominee for the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. What criteria the Senate should use is not delineated in the Constitution. Again, norms is the key. The norm in the past has been that, be in the mainstream, so to speak, be qualified, don't be, have these other problems, but I'm not going to vote yay or nay as long as you're within a mainstream lane of legal thought. That's out the window now. And it went out the window last year. Mm-hmm. I mean, that people just, we didn't pay, well, we did, but the media just, it's not a big deal. Merrick Garland's not going to get a hearing. The president's not going to get the pick. He's not going to get a vote on his nominee. But it was a big deal. Those rules are gone. And if the Democrats in the Senate think they're not, they're crazy. If you let this one go by without doing everything you can to stop him, to say for the next one, what's going to happen on the next one? I mean, this is obvious.
That's when they'll do it.
That's when they'll do it.
Yeah. I mean, that seems pretty plain.
I mean, you're not saving anything. Now, look, I actually expect them to nuke the filibuster.
Yeah.
On judicial nominations. And I think there's going to come a day, David, that, and I don't know if you agree, that there's going to be a legislative issue that Trump wants done, and he's going to tweet out, nuke the filibuster.
Yeah, I mean, he has said
for
as
legislation.
I don't know if he's tweeted it. Oh, for legislation, yeah, well, that too. Yeah, as soon as he doesn't get the one he wants.
Exactly. And what do you think McConnell's going to do?
Now,
even under the, but McConnell professes to say his understanding is that you can only change the rules by 2/3 of the vote once you've adopted them. And he says the rules continue over from one Senate to the other. You remember all those discussions of whether you need to readopt them, et cetera?
Yes, of course. Actually, if you go and check the rules, by the way, I mean, he needs to speak more precisely. If you go read Rule 22, it still says 60 votes. 3/5 are necessary to cut off debate. It's just that there's now precedent for something else, and he's relying on that to get all these nominations through. And although it would have been interesting, Democrats are agreeing to abide by the precedent which they helped to set, and so that's nice and it's consistent and it's logical and all that. But it would have been interesting for them to say, "What are you talking about? I just read Rule 22 and it doesn't say that." Well, you remember this vote, right? Nope. No recollection of it whatsoever. I think you're going to have to do it over again.
Yeah, or you can say, we thought that then, but we were wrong.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Whatever the answer is, I mean, make them take the nuclear option vote all over again and say, you said it was horrible, but, what's the ruling of the chair? Well, the ruling of the chair is that the precedent is, I appeal the ruling of the chair. Okay, fine. Well, all right, let me watch. I know what the outcome is going to be. I just would like to take an hour out of our schedule to watch 51 Republicans vote to say that's the precedent. Because if it was horrible, your opportunity to reverse it is right here in front of you. But I know that, for the record, you're probably not going to reverse it because it benefits you now, which is fine by me. I knew that going in. I just want it to be fine by you.
That would have been a smart move.
Yeah, well, we don't have smart.
Look, I mean, it's an interesting, the trajectory, and I know you're running out of time, but I just think the trajectory of attitudes on how to deal with Trump from Election Day to now. You remember, from Schumer to Bernie, I'll work with him on things I can agree with. Bernie picked out
It's the thing that senators say when rules apply.
Right.
Right. So they don't, so don't say them.
But I think right now we're at the stage where everyone's saying, it's ridiculous to work with them.
Yes, well, hopefully. And hopefully people are hearing from their constituents now. I mean, I don't know that they've made any decision strategically about what to do about the filibuster on a Supreme Court nominee. This is just, I will say, it's probably right that there are people wondering about this. It's probably wrong that, I'm sure CNN and Politico basically running stories that'll make the base angry with Democrats, and it's not baseless reporting. They're not completely making things up, but it's not to say that it's the controlling thought.
There's 48 Democratic senators. What is there, 5 or 6 that are in the leadership? Mm-hmm. I mean, is someone in the leadership talking to CNN about these things? If they are, they're dumb. At least, until you know what you're going to do, you need to set it up for trying to sell it. I mean, if it's a trial balloon, it's a bad trial balloon.
No one knows who controls that. Let me just add one more thing, I guess, before we do, in fact, run out of time. I want to make an observation while you're here that Justice tweeted over to me, not the Department of Justice, but Justice Putnam, who has his own department here at Netroots Radio. But
is he going to fire himself? So that's the question.
Well, what he sent me was, and this follows on a story that you guys might have seen the other day. I don't think we mentioned it on the air. That whitehouse.gov, the official White House website. People noticed the other day, for instance, that in the page, the menu page describing our government, that they listed the executive branch and the legislative branch, and that was it. They didn't list the judicial branch. Which no one could understand. No one knew whether it was just a dumb error or were they actually literally trying to deny that there was a judicial branch in the face of their opposition to this executive order. It's now back, by the way, the judicial branch, but also up there, Justice pointed this to me. I mean, this is a peripheral point to today, but interesting nonetheless. Pointed me to their description of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And rather than simply reprint the Bill of Rights, the language in many cases, some of which we're all familiar with, it wouldn't, confuse us. They instead gave basically an executive summary of each of the amendments in the Bill of Rights. And importantly, you might not think it's important right off the bat, but it does make a certain amount of, cause a certain amount of legal trouble. Everywhere in which the Bill of Rights in the original text mentions that these rights attach to the people or persons in the United States, etc., that language has been switched to the word citizens. Interestingly, the Second Amendment is boiled down to gives citizens the right to bear arms. They got rid of that whole militia thing. But the Fourth Amendment, for instance, which ordinarily reads the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, and papers, is translated here as protects citizens from unreasonable search and seizure.
Incredible. Because, that's actually false.
Yeah.
Protects persons.
Fake Constitution news here. It protects everybody who's inside the United States and subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. But they would have you believe that it only applies to citizens, and so therefore it would be constitutional, according to this writing of it, to seize the persons or papers of someone who is a legal permanent resident, a green card holder. Like, I could take your green card, as a matter of fact. That now belongs to me. That's government property. Yoink. It doesn't belong to you. You have no personal right to it, the actual physical card, because you're not a citizen. That's just not true. But it says it on the way. And it may be a dope, trying to dumb it down for the reading audience and an innocent mistake. But it's also the kind of thing that you'll see in litigation. People try and claim that all the time, or not in litigation really, but in commonplace everyday rhetoric. And it's certainly something that a large number of people, both Trump supporters and not, actually do offhandedly believe out there. They just have come away with this false understanding of it, and to them it makes sense. Oh, of course, only citizens. That's who's protected by the Constitution. But yeah, let's remind everybody that no, citizen or no, if you're here, they can't torture you because you're non-citizen, despite the strictures of the Bill of Rights. They can't just seize you and throw you in jail if you're not a citizen. No. Important to point out. Well, we definitely are out of time, but I wanted you to hear that one while you were here with us.
Yeah. These incidents are piling up.
Yeah.
They are doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we're going to have to check in with that
this
all
conversation
week.
will continue for 4 years.
Yes, no doubt. Thanks very much, Armando, for joining us. And time to hand the microphone over to the guys at we'll call it the Justice Department today on the After Show to round up all the things that we weren't able to get to today. This will continue. Thanks very much, Armando.
Thank you.
Here's what's up on the After Show. A leaked memo shows that under Trump, not even the EPA knows what's going on at the EPA. A former NBA player and now Golden State Warriors coach, Steve Kerr, whose father was killed by terrorists, calls Trump's Muslim ban a horrible idea, and Trump's Muslim ban bars Syria's white helmets from attending the Oscars. On the last half today, talking to Chris Reeves, Tom Servo 433, for a discussion about the impacts of deregulation on the rural Trump voter, what local municipalities can do in regards to water and air quality, and other regulatory oversight. Also, refugee and immigrant issues in Kansas, and they'll be announcing, you ready for this announcement? Shouldn't ruin it, right? Chris's candidacy for the DNC Vice Chair of Civic Engagement and Voter Participation. If for some reason you're not listening to the After Show, make a change for that announcement today, and why not stick with it as habit forever after. More after this.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
With David Waldman.
A million other things I didn't get to today. By the way, among the most amazing, I'll try and squeeze this one in. Who tweeted? I'll give you a million guesses. What celebrity athlete, I guess if you call him, tweeted his family's refugee story in rejecting the Trump position on his executive order? The answer, Dale Earnhardt Jr.